because I usually start the videos with like, like a pre-blooper and then go in, but it won't be anything crazy.
It's all they're laid back, man. It's all, we're just talking beer.
The 9th beer of this year's 12 Beers of Christmas might be my favorite holiday ale of all time. It's Great Lakes Brewing Company's Christmas Ale, and it is a holiday party in every bottle. This beautiful beer, brewed with honey and spiced with ginger and cinnamon, has gone from massively popular seasonal brew to a whale all of its own. Just ahead is a great conversation I had with Great Lakes Education Coordinator Michael Williams about the beer, its extremely festive fan base, why it means so much to the Cleveland beer scene, and we get some legit tips on brewing something very similar at home. The 12 Beers of Christmas is brought to you with ongoing support from BSG Handcraft, Imperial Yeast, and the Patreon supporters of Chop and Brew. Join them at patreon.com/chopandbrew. What's going on, everybody? It's the 9th beer of the 12 Beers of Christmas, and we are drinking on some Great Lakes Christmas Ale, arguably one of the most iconic Christmas beers, I would say, in the American craft beer landscape. Great Lakes Brewing Company is in Cleveland. I am here with Michael Williams. Yo, Mike, what up?
Not much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Chip.
Yeah, how are things in Cleveland?
Things are good. We're grooving full steam ahead. It's our busiest season right now. We're a little bit odd for a brewery in that our busiest time of year is when the weather is terrible, as opposed to everybody sitting outside drinking beer. So it's a lot of fun.
Why is that?
Because we sell more Christmas ale in 8 weeks than we sell of any other beer throughout the entire year, believe it or not.
Really?
I'll drop that bombshell right off the bat, apparently, here.
All right. Well, we will talk about that. First, I just want to kind of introduce you. You're the education coordinator for Great Lakes. What sort of projects and tasks does that entail?
Yeah, so it's a fun job. I evolved into this job from being a tour guide and working in the pub earlier. So I still do a ton of customer facing stuff. I just did a tasting with the Cleveland baseball team a little bit earlier today. So I'll do tastings with our partners in town. I run a series of educational programs that we call Hop College. We are offering those, of course, virtually right now, but we have offered them in person in the past. Those would be like a deep dive into style history. So we did one for Christmas Ale and some other holiday beers earlier in November. And then I pretty much any key new hire we have at Great Lakes, I'll give them brand training. So we have a new sales rep coming on later this week. I'll have her for some training, and I'll work with our distributor partners and retailers as well. So I get to hop around in normal times and work with those guys who are out there selling the beer for us. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm pumped to be here and talk Christmas Ale with you.
Right, which puts you in like a very unique position to answer a bunch of random questions thrown at to you from the internet.
I like it.
So yeah, Christmas Ale. That's impressive. I was going to ask, like, what's its place in the portfolio? Is it just the most best-selling seasonal? But it sounds like it's the granddaddy.
Yeah, it has turned into that. So just like a brief overview of the beer, like it's a beer that we've brewed for a long time. We've been brewing it since 92. It was kind of like one of the early brainchilds of the brewing team. Pat and Dan Conway, the co-founders at Great Lakes, certainly had a hand in that, but a number of our early brewers kind of collaborated on some of those early recipes. And Christmas Ale was indeed one of those early recipes. So it's been with us for a long time. And then it's just one of those beers that we almost don't even know exactly why or how. But every year it was like, oh, sold out like, a week earlier. Sold out another week earlier. Now it's like, uh-oh, it's Thanksgiving and we didn't make enough beer. So it's just this really organic thing. We've done like one, maybe two media campaigns for Christmas Ale, but those have actually been more recently where it's more like, okay, now there are a bunch of other Christmas ales out there. And we just, just gently remind people about the Great Lakes one. But from like 1992 until 2010 or so, it was just this natural evolution. And then we actually had to straight up start investing in more equipment at the brewery pretty much so that we could brew enough of this particular beer. So we installed some 600 barrel fermenters in 2015. Like we'd already installed a couple of other tanks just to keep up with demand for this particular brand. So yeah, it was just like the growth of the beer. And we were also expanding territories and stuff like that. So we moved from just Ohio to covering the entire Great Lakes. And, there are plenty of Northeast Ohio people who now live in other areas and they want the beer too. So all of a sudden by 2015, we had this kind of good monstrosity in our hands. And yeah, it like I said, like it hasn't been every year, but since 2015, we've had a couple of years where Christmas Ale has actually outsold Dortmunder Gold, which has kind of traditionally been our flagship, if you will. And it's a year-round beer. Like you can get that all year. And somehow this particular beer in 8 weeks can surpass the sales of that beer. So
that's mind-blowing.
Its place in our portfolio. Yeah. It's a very important beer for us. Very different compared to most other brewers out there.
Oh yeah, totally. That's wild. So talk a little bit about the obsession, the diehard fan base. Like what happens when this beer rolls out? What kind of events, what kind of response? Like I love like looking at social media as people like find it for the first time. Cause I have to like look for it really early. Cause we do get a very limited amount here. There are years where I don't get it. I should preface this by saying I'm very, very obsessed with this beer to the point where we ended up going to Cleveland to make sure that we get it in some of these other holiday ales we'll talk about. But yeah, talk about I don't know what you call them, the Christmas ale heads.
Christmas that's not bad. Ooh, we have there are a lot of popular nicknames out there for the beer.
Oh, really?
Fans. Yeah.
Like what?
Oh, jail ale, Christmas crack, stuff like that. Stuff that people, it expresses their deep fondness for the beer. And we'll hear those fun nicknames for our festive offering especially on days like the Christmas Ale First Pour, which happens every year. At the end of October. So this hits the market, we try to get it to hit the market. So it's out there the first weekend of November. So depending on that, first pour will be roughly a week before that. Usually it's around October 25th. So the pub will be all decked out, of course, have the festive music, front of house will all, I did it when I was serving. I wore my green cardigan sweater and all that stuff. And people will line up. They will start lining up outside the brew pub at about 7:30 a.m. We don't open until 11. And they form a line that goes all the way around the block at our brew pub in Ohio City. And, we'll hit capacity right away. And there will frequently be a line that just kind of stays out there throughout the day. So it's really cool to see. It's one of my favorite days. Obviously, this year was a little different. We still did do a first pour, though, with all the proper protocols put in place. It was really cool to see. Something that's been a big theme for me this year with Christmas Ale has been like, it's a sense of familiarity in this very odd year. And it was really cool to see so many people, not as many as normal, but so many people super excited about something, when they haven't been able to be as excited as normal throughout the year. So that's a really fun day. And of course, so when you hear all the colorful nicknames and stuff like that for beer, especially once you get to dinner shift. So yeah, that's a big one. But you're right. People go nuts about this beer on social for sure. We have our little, kind of like Facebook groups, for Northeast Ohio craft beer lovers or Cleveland craft beer lovers and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it's always fun to see the debate back and forth about, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about some other versions later, but like just the fact that people in Northeast Ohio are debating, like, what's their favorite Christmas ale. It's just like, wow, we have a really kind of cool thing going on here. That kind of like had roots and origin in our version. So, yeah, just like one or two other crazy things about first pour, because that's the biggest thing that comes to mind when thinking about like drinkers' response to this, especially since I'm based out of the brewery. Our sales reps could tell you stories about they have first pour parties in outer markets too. Chicago's got one, Buffalo's got one, and so on. But actually, my first day of work at Great Lakes was I was a busser, and it was actually the first pour in 2012. So I certainly I had a firm introduction to Great Lakes Brewing Company because that's pretty much getting thrown right into the fire.
It's really interesting to have. It almost sounds like it's a whale. It's a whale's bra, but it's also got like a lot of availability. But it's still, but that's the beauty of it, right? If you treat something with a lot of availability, like it's the party set off, that just means you're gonna have a good time pretty much for like a month and a half, 2 months. Like, I don't know. That's kind of how I felt when I was there experiencing it in real time.
Yeah. And I'm a fond appreciator of whale culture, and I like my pastry stouts and all that stuff.
I'm a whale watcher, a whale hunter.
I'm a whale watcher. Yeah. I'm there, we don't make a lot of that kind of beer normally at Great Lakes because we're just a different business model and stuff like that. I personally am a huge appreciator of taking some whales. But I think what's so cool about this particular beer is that first of all, for the outer markets, like for you guys up in Minnesota, you only got distributor only brings in so many cases. So there almost is a little bit of that whale factor for everyone who doesn't live in Northeast Ohio.
Yeah.
But then it's still cool, like, regular seasonal beer releases, you can still get excited about those.
I believe so. Yeah. That's what really makes, I don't know, chasing beers or having kind of like an internal clock about beer important when you're not one of these like $18 to $25 a bottle chasers. But like, I love Oktoberfest. I find as many as I can. There's certain ones I know I'm going to find, and then I like getting new ones, these winter beers. Maibach, god dang, if more people would make a Maibach, I would trade for Maibach.
Amen to that. Yeah. That's like a huge window right there. What are we doing in May, in April and May, right?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the beer. God, we haven't even said what's in the beer. I'll probably set it up in the intro so people aren't like, come on, 20 minutes in, tell me what's in the beer. What makes it so amazing is like it. The way it looks is just stunning. Every year when I get it, I forget how light. It's not this like dark brown or amber. It's got this weirdest way of being like Pilsner malt meets Christmas red. And I don't know. But then the other thing, it's got cinnamon, ginger, and honey. They all definitely affect it, from the alcohol content to the spice to the warmth. Talk a little bit about what this beer is and why. Maybe we can start the discussion there. Like maybe why this started to define this Northeast Ohio holiday ale sub-style that we tried to coin a couple of years ago.
We gotta get a BJCP entry for.
I'm gonna get Chris England. He lives like 3 blocks over, man. I'm gonna shake him down.
Come on, yeah. Let's get that in the 2023 guidelines when the version comes out. I'm all about that.
That's real talk.
Okay. So, what makes this beer what it is, and kind of why does it define, the style? It's and you can look at winter seasonal beer for this. That is an actual category that already exists, technically speaking. So we can just look at that. But like, it's basically a beer that should be, and we draw on the English tradition for this. You see this universally in beer traditions: stronger, darker beers brewed for the holidays when it tends to be cold and you need something warming. And many of them will have spices. So that's totally what ours is. Ours was technically the second version, right? Well, we tip our hats to Anchor. They did come out with theirs in, the 1970s, but ours was the one that really blew up. So like, what constitutes it? For us, malt bill is semi-complex kind of, we use basic pale 2-row. Crystal 45. And then there's a little bit of wheat in there just for a little bit of head retention because of all the interference from the oils from the spices, right? There's some special roast. So, and I like your description of Pill's Malt meets, Christmas colors, because I think it's the special roast that really helps define the color of this beer. Because you get the intensity of the kilning from that particular malt. There's some roast barley in there too. I think that's to help with some drinkability.
Yeah.
But it's all about the spices, right? So this has 612 pounds of honey per 75 barrel batch. So relatively large amount of honey per batch of beer. That's what our production brew house size is. And then we use 20 pounds each of cinnamon and ginger for this beer. So it's a lot that goes into it. I mean, it sounds like a lot too, because we're talking our production brewery scale, but we have, there are a couple kind of clone-like recipes going out there. I think we're going to link to one probably that was more or less checked off by one of our recent brewers. The key is sure, it's a massive amount of spices and stuff like that, and it's got a hefty complex malt bill, but you're brewing with honey, right? So that's lighting up the body. So you got your ABV, but it is not as full as one would expect for a complex malt bill at 7.5. And then the spices are right in harmony with each other. So none of them are going to overpower the other. That goes for the honey too. That honey blends really nicely in with the malt character from Special Roast and the crystals. So that's what makes this beer extremely quaffable, which to use one of those
you
fancy,
don't say,
right? By the way, which one do you like better right now? Isn't one
record? Yeah, I'll say for the record, Mike had me pour one at serving temp suggestion. So this has been at about 50. This basement's about barely 60. So it's 50. This is probably at 46 now. It's hard to tell. It's kind of interesting. I feel like the spices pop more in the colder one, which I would have thought would be more the warmer one, but maybe the warmer one is where the malts kind of shine a little bit more.
I was going to say, I think the malt and maybe the honey character might be popping a little bit more.
Oh, okay. I could see that. Yeah, the spice is definitely more foreground in the colder one. The warmer one does kind of finish like candy melting a little bit across the palate, whereas the colder one, the spices just go straight back.
Sure. Cool. I like that. Yeah. I don't do side-by-sides very often with this. When we pull off the tank, it's usually still pretty cold.
Yeah.
But and you're totally, the spices always pop for me then too. So that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, for me, I think it's really all about that. Sure, you've got all these festive ingredients going on, but harmony, balance is key.
Yeah. Spice beer is so easy to ruin. Oh my God.
Right. Yep.
So easy.
Red gum or anything, you want to be drinking a beer. So
yeah. So you mentioned there is a homebrew talk.com thread that has essentially been kind of signed off. The brewery stopped short of posting something on their website, but some guy who I assume is from Cleveland back in 2011 started this thread. I only say he's from Cleveland because he says he uses your byproduct in his compost, because somebody was questioning whether there was ginger or not. He was like, believe me, I've seen this in my backyard. There are chunks of ginger in this thing.
That's good. Yep.
The point is, we're going to link that below, the recipe. What is kind of surprising to me and a couple other brew nerds as we were looking at it, it says the cinnamon and the ginger is in the entire boil. And I don't know if that's just this guy's beersmith doing that, or is that true?
This is what we do. Yeah, enough said about that, because you'd think maybe you'd over extract or something like that, but I guess it's worked for us. But I shame on me, I haven't homebrewed for a little while, so I'm not sure exactly if it's a matter of scale. Just we have we basically put the cinnamon and ginger into something that's like a tea strainer. It's a metal version of a mesh bag. And maybe it's just because we have a very large tank and, there's not as much surface area contact, we don't have as much of a problem. But 60-minute boil. I mean, try it out, and the recipe that's been posted has had some pretty good feedback, so works out pretty well.
So what else we wanted to talk about? So we talked about the beer. We talked about how homebrewers might go about it. I kind of want. So we came to Cleveland, and so I liked Christmas ale before, but when we came to Cleveland, shame on me, I can't remember. It was either like 15, 16, the first time. We were just blown away how every brewery seemed to have this holiday ale, 7.5-ish ABV, 35-ish IBU, and then like maybe not a similar spice, but the idea was there might be nutmeg, it might be allspice, it might not be cinnamon, ginger, honey, but like it was clear you guys had set kind of a precedent, and you kind of referred to it in having to kind of restake your claim and like, let's not forget everybody. So tell me about this. Like, I mean, we made a whole weekend out of just chasing these down, and it was a great weekend. So many people there know what they're doing with these beers too. There wasn't a lot that I would say was like a palate fatiguing, broken spice ale. So like, talk a little bit about the continuum.
Right. So one of the reasons why that is so is because a lot of those guys were shift brewers at Great Lakes.
Dude, the same thing here, man. It's like, where'd all these hazy IPAs came from? They kind of all came from this one brewery, and then everybody found new things. But yeah, that's
so like. Okay. Do you remember any of the specific ones that you had by chance?
Yeah, I made a little list from. Hold on, I'm trying to get in focus here a little bit. That's what's happening with 2 Christmas ales. I went back to my photos from 4 or 5 years ago. So we really like Kexmas Ale, which is Modern Methods out in Warren.
Oh, okay.
Holly Jolly Christmas, Fatheads, Festivus Market Garden Brewery, which I do know. The backstory there is it's very much like like a splinter from Great Lakes. But you know, the Fatheads, cinnamon. The Kexmas has grated ginger, allspice, nutmeg, so a little different spice blend, and then the Festivus obviously has just a little twist on it too.
Yep. So I haven't had the one from the brewery from Warren, but Fatheads, Matt Cole, he's a Great Lakes alum. Andy Tvikram at Market Garden,
right?
Great Lakes alum. Also, the big one is Thirsty Dog in Akron.
12 Dogs.
Tim Ratzbitter. Yeah, 12 Dogs, exactly. Yeah, that's the big one where there's a lot of. That's where the rumors come from that it's the original, which it's not. But Tim also worked for us, so, and it's totally cool. They're all homages, and like it's what you do as brewers, you know, like you learn from each other. You know, I mean, if they were literally taking the Great Lakes recipe, that'd be one thing. But everyone's brewing their own version of it. I think it's really cool, and a lot of them are literally based on ours because those guys brewed them. And a lot of these guys are kind of early mid 90s. So like they wouldn't have been like our literal, like our guys who are brewing it, you know, 4 times a shift, 5 days a week, like they are now, but they knew the beer very well. So they're all a little bit different. I just think that's really cool. And it doesn't, even though I mentioned that thing about how we did a campaign not that long ago, like we haven't seen a sales dip or anything like that. And those guys are doing well because people in Northeast Ohio just love this kind of beer, and they love ours, you know, maybe primarily, but like they love the other ones too. And I think there are some really good versions out there too. I like Matt's a lot, Holly Jolly. I find that to be a little bit more restrained on the spice compared to ours. And then I think Thirsty Dogs has a little bit heavier hand of spicing. That one's also like more towards 8%. So like they're all expressions on the theme. And I just think it's a cool thing. And it's kind of one of those rising tides type thing, you know, this particular beer, ours has helped some other brewers also share in the pie without our share going down, which is kind of nice.
That's literally what I was going to, like, I was thinking rising tides, because I was like, all right, this could be one of 2 things. It could be like the classic Texas barbecue family rift that just is inconsolable and it's just this beautiful drama, but then people are hurt. Or it could be like people within an industry trying to define a style in a way that maybe no one's asking them to, or no one's paying attention to except me. But clearly not, like, because your local beer writers are like, here's 24 holiday ales you have to have. You're like, well, this is clearly a thing. I mean, it's like a New England IPA, right? Or a West Coast IPA. It's like, there's something happening in this like area off of a shallow ass lake that has a lot of spice to it.
Yep, we have a shallow lake. Sorry. We're the wimpy lake.
I will say, so I've never done this either, had like both side by side. The colder one, what I just kind of like shot off was like ginger ale meets braggot, which totally makes sense because of the honey influence.
Totally. I like that.
I know,
okay.
I'm
going to keep that in the back.
Okay.
Back of the head right there. Bust it out for the right crowd.
So I think we've talked about almost everything. The last thing I would like to think, because this is such a spiced beer, it seems to have culinary implications. Do you, or does the brewery suggest, or people that you've heard of, either cook with it or kind of cook for it? Are there any like really good pairings you've kind of heard of or seen or tasted?
Yeah, I like doing both. This is, not to do a little cop out here, but just the first time I love to pair this with is any of those festive holiday meals where there's all the emotions, all the feels that are going on. This is always on the table for Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, stuff like that. It does work well with those, roasted meats and things like that. I think you get some flavor resonances going on from Maillard reactions going on during the roasting process with the crispy skin, and then you get some resonances in the malt profile. We have a ham glaze that's made with this. So if you're a honey glazed ham fan, I don't think that glaze gets too far outside Northeast Ohio, but perhaps, make your own honey glaze with the beer. That'll be a great thing to load on top of a ham for the holidays. This is a no-brainer for desserts. So we actually tried out, we have a recipe on the website, greatlakesbrewing.com. My wife is actually just browsing. We did Thanksgiving just by ourselves this year, and which gives us a lot of freedom. We love to cook, so we got to cook our own Thanksgiving and stuff. We made an apple pie that incorporated Christmas ale. So we sliced up the apples, and I believe they marinated in the beer for a little bit, and then we threw it in the crust and baked it up, and worked really well because cinnamon spicing for the apples.
For real.
That'd be a good one. And then just for something different, like we were talking about this not long ago, but like just other dishes that incorporate those spices. So you could do curry dishes for something totally different, totally out of left field. That's going to link up real well because you'll see cinnamon and ginger used in various curry dishes out there. So I actually personally have not given that a try. That was one of my direct coworkers who suggested that, but I think it'd be pretty rad. And we're going to try it out sometime over the next couple of weeks while the beer is still in season. So it's a lot you can do. Just think about any dish that would use those spices. Mm-hmm. You can pretty much make a link right there. So it's surprisingly versatile. I think we tend to think of holiday beers as like you have them in this kind of window and, they don't necessarily link up with a bunch of other stuff, but you can do a lot of fun stuff with this.
Has there ever been a variant? Have you ever barrel-aged Christmas ale, or like, I don't know, do you serve it on cast with more ginger or more cinnamon sticks?
We have done barrel-aged, so that's become a fairly... That's the closest thing we have to a whale, right? They're a true whale.
That's what I was going to say. I've never heard of it. That don't get far out of Northeast Ohio, I guarantee you.
No distro bro on that one. That one's distros. That's
never heard that. Hashtag no distro, bro.
Distro, bro.
That's you better get a plane ticket, son.
That's right. Yep. Gift shop only. We end up with about 3,000 bombers of that. And we'll have the line for that one too. That will usually sell out in about 2 hours. And that's really just more because that's the amount of time it takes for the line, to work its way through the gift shop.
Yep.
It always sells out day of. That's the big one that we've done. And it just imagine this with a little bit of that vanilla toffee, oaky type note on top of it. It works. Barrel aging works really well for this beer. No imperial or anything like that, but it can be fun. But barrel aging is great.
Christmas ale. Oh my God, how crazy would that be? Like an 11% version of one of these holiday ales. And I'm sure they exist. I'm sure some of them go outside of that, like 7.5. Like we had some that were like 9, but I didn't have any that was like 12.
Yeah, that would be that'd be dangerous. We see some of the Belgian ones out there, but those aren't really the same, right? So yeah, if you could pull out the drinkability of something like the 7.5 range at that high of a gravity, then that's danger.
All right, Mike, I think we've done all the things. I will say this was a good fanboy kind of moment for this beer. It's meant a lot over the years, and it's been funny to hear a lot of it from the inside. So this is good times. It's got all the makings of a whale, a seasonal thing you can expect if you're smart enough to seek it out. I would advise people find that homebrew recipe that we're going to link below, your website, some recipes, whatever we can get, maybe some suggested homies that we would put you on. And yeah, I do hope that the Northeast Ohio style holiday ale is like a canonized style in the next guidelines, in the BJCP guidelines. That would warm my heart.
Right? Yep.
All right, brother. Cheers. Thanks for telling me to pour 2 of them.
Hey, my pleasure.
Are you at your home or are you in the office? Because this looks like such a great laid out space.
I know, right? Yeah, I actually just put up some new stuff today, but this is my we kind of have 2 where they're technically bedrooms, and we just use them as offices. So my wife works right across the hall because she's obviously working from home too. Mm-hmm. But then we had this big old malt wheel thing. This is something we had in our tour space, and we were just refreshing and moving to new stuff. So I was like, I'll take that. I was that's probably a good Zoom background.
No, you look like
some other stuff. Just yesterday, I took some stuff back from the actual office and brought them back. So, but yeah, those are pillows over there. Oh,
that's a bed. I thought it was an orange couch. No, I thought that was dude, that's where he chills.
Okay, I like that it looks like a couch and not a bed because that makes it seem even more legit.
We used to have this crazy bright orange couch from the 70s, and that was the first thing I thought when I saw it. I was like, that dude's got that same crazy couch that he must have inherited from an aunt or uncle or a mother.
I'm just gonna pretend it's a couch. Yeah, it's a couch.
A Shea lounge.
That's right. Or when I'm doing my contemplation,